Hey there, family. How you doing? I'm your brother Vladimir Diesel. Oh God, yeah, and this is Mtima Radi. Mtima Radi, Soul Lightning. Quick shout out to the Twitter handle Trading Money 007. Um, huh. Periodically, I get these questions that really do uh catch my mind, and I've been asked questions throughout the years where I'm like, man, that's a really good question. And the answers are like, yeah, it's a really good question. Too bad you can't answer it, you know? And recently, um, I had posted a video. I'm not going to tell you which one because if you find it, you'll find it. If you don't, it ain't time yet, right? But I posted a video and the person asked some really powerful questions. Not only just good questions, but powerful questions. And so I wanted to make this video to first say, guys, this is one of the reasons why I'm always encouraging you. Ask questions. You never know. You may think it's dumb. You may think it's dumb. But understand that if you're looking for metaphysical information, it is because you are connected to the great divine and the network that is in existence without most people knowing it's in existence, that transmutes all of this energy and all of this information from the earthly realm through the divine realm and back again. You could ask a question that you feel is stupid as get out, but it'll be the key for somebody else who is reading it 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the road to an answer that unlocks a book, that unlocks another book, that unlocks another book, that unlocks another book, that unlocks a child 20 years down the way. 20 years. A child that you never met, that you never knew existed, that you never knew was about to exist, who gets ignited based on that chain of events and becomes an important person in the history of the world or even the history of black folks. Questions only become stupid when the mind is disruptive and intoxicated. The word stupid. One of the things that I'm going to start trying to do more when I do come on here, and I know I haven't been producing a lot of these lately, and that's probably going to continue for another year or so. I thought maybe I'd be producing more of them this year, but I'm doing some work that the ancestors wanted me to do for years. I'm finally getting into it. But one of the things that I want to do is bring more words out. So the word stupid comes from the word stupor. Stupid is Stupid. Stupor is Stupor. The word stupid comes from the word stupor because when you describe a person that has become infected with stupor, you don't say, or it didn't sound phonetically correct to say that they're stuporid or Stupor, maybe another R-E-D. Stuporid wasn't a good, phonetic sounding word. So they dropped the OR, pushed that ED over, dropped the E, replaced it with an I, and you get stupid, right? Stupor has to do with intoxication. That's what stupor has to deal with. You're intoxicated by something. Um, that is why I'm like, don't ever think that questions are stupid, because the one thing that we can learn from white folks is white people judge questions according to their validity mostly after they have done the due diligence in investigating them. Then they're like, oh yeah, this led us to nowhere. Forget about it. Whereas black folks, We think before we speak, which we're supposed to and we should. But we come up with questions and we're like, that's crazy, that's dumb. Why the hell are we ever? I mean, come on, why am I thinking that? You never know. You never know. So, I wanted to speak to this person because I don't know if it's a sister or brother. And I wanted to say this, and I'm sorry, my camera seems to be glitchy, so I don't know if you're catching that, but it's glitchy for me. So I apologize if it is glitchy. But I wanted to say this. The questions that you asked were very advanced, and they're very good. Those are not typically the type of questions that you answer in a public forum, though some of them could be. Those are the type of questions that you do one of two things with. You either speak one on one with the person, or you publish them in a book that is not hard to find, but limited. But limited. And look, I'm not even going to pretend that I have answers to all those questions. In fact, I love them so much because I don't have answers to probably 85% of them. But I know they're powerful because when I gave them to the ancestors said, "Oh, these are advanced. These are advanced. This person sees what you see." I don't know if you're young. I don't know if you're middle aged. I don't know if you're old. There's one sister who actually does check out my channel often, and she leaves great comments. I mean, detailed, brilliant, beautiful. Oh, it moves my heart comments. I love them, and she knows who she is. I've had many conversations with her, and many of you have probably seen her. And she's older. And it is respectable beyond belief and humbling, to know that there are older folk who look at my content and say, this is great, this is wonderful, this is beautiful. It humbles me a lot. There was a place where I wanted to go with that, but I'm going to leave it to that. In fact, most of the folks who leave messages, they offer me a sense of humility because it's like, wow, people paying attention. I got to make sure that my words are right. That stated, I really just wanted to come on here and say thank you to all of y'all and to really highlight those questions. There's another person who asked a question on the dreamscape. That's another difficult one to do. That one you could do in a public forum. It's just that is such a big question to explain the dreamscape. Even though I had some insights into it back in 2000, the year 2000, and the dreamscape realm, I guess I could go into that for a little bit. The dreamscape realm, it depends on what you're doing. Sometimes the dreamscape scape realm is literally not a dream. It's you doing stuff when you're outside of your body. I have had many dreams where I have gone back to a place where I was familiar with, to check on people, to, in one instance, um, to check on my home. I wanted, I hadn't been home in what would have been a couple of decades, or nearly a couple of decades. When was this? No, in a decade. I hadn't been home for a decade, and I wanted to go home and just see the place. So I went home. Um, I went to other worlds, other places where I was familiar with that had human life on it, and sometimes not human life on it. But there's that. And then obviously the dreamscape that the person's talking about is when you have those dreams that don't make sense. The best way to explain that is to say that the human mind is so much more active and larger, and the capacity of it is so much greater than we give it credit. So much more. And so it's not that dreamscaping is a place, even though I think there is a place where the stuff that we don't want to get rid of goes. Um, it's just our mind is so much bigger than we think of it here, that it seems like there has to be a place where all of this comes together at. We are sparks off of what the Jewish folks call a Godhead, you know, and I call them the omnigodic form. And because of this, God created all this. The omnigodic form created everything, right? It's not female, it's not male, it's just what is. And if that energy can create all of this, and we're a spark off of that energy, think about what we're actually capable of creating, especially especially when we are limited in our ability to appreciate and understand what we create and what we have the capacity to create. To us, in human form, the mind is so limited that it is impossible for us to believe that when we get to the ancestral realm, our mind can conceive of an entire county. And if your mind's powerful enough and you've done the work enough, you can conceive of a civilization, a continent, or more. And then when you start working with people, you can conceive of a planet. Now, what differs between you in the omnigodic form or the Godhead is you don't have unlimited energy yet. So if you and a bunch of people conceived of a planet, that planet, unless it was imbued with a life force, which you could get at the center of what we often call the universe, but it's not really the center of the universe. There's a whole thing with that. Even the omniverse is like, wow, the I've called it that, the UVM. But if you were to infuse it with that energy, then the planet could self-perpetuate itself because it would essentially have a soul. And if you did it correctly, it would have a soul. But if you didn't want the soul and you just wanted the energy, you would have to replenish or connect the planet to that to make sure it is replenished every so often. Remember the video I did on water, right? Earth has a soul, so it doesn't have to worry about that. But you don't have the capacity to automatically create and infuse what's called life into something. That's your limitation. Now, as you grow more and you move towards what they often call reabsorption into the omni-God form, you get that capacity, momentarily. You can make that happen for a brief moment. But then only when you go what they call behind the veil, you get reabsorbed. You don't really get reabsorbed, by the way. It's kind of interesting. But you get reabsorbed. That's when you start really dealing with that ability, that capacity. But once when you go to that point, you no longer you don't incarnate anymore. You're done incarnating. Okay? You're not actually coming to life anymore. So it's it's bigger than the mind tends to like to think when you think about dreams. At the same time, always remember, you also, when you sleep, some of the dreams that you are getting are literally moving hieroglyphics. It's an interpretive way for your ancestors and your guides to communicate with you. So there are times when you have a dream about something and you're like, why the hell did I dream about that? One, write it down. Two, try to find the symbolism. And sometimes the symbolism isn't what's in dream books or on the internet. You have to sit quietly and listen, because then the ancestors will come forward and say, oh, this is what we meant by this. This is what we meant by this. And it is possible, because it's happened to me multiple times, that you have a dream with 20 different things in it. And you think, oh, well, this all has to be connected. And then when the ancestors are running down it, they're like, nah, that's not important. That comes from the past. That's not important. That comes from the past. That's not important. That comes from the past. And it's like, but wait, they come from the past. Yeah, that's just your mind dealing with that stuff. It's not really important. However, these 12 things, let's talk about those. This has to do with this. This has to do with this. And you're like, but none of that stuff actually matches. Why was it? It's because your brain is so large. Your brain is dealing with a lot of stuff. It just took it all and boom. We were trying to get you this information, and your brain was like, well, I'll just put it all in one place for him. Moreover, and this is also a major one, if you happen to be in a place that is called familiar to you, look for the things that are out of place or the things that are highlighted. And those are the things you typically want to pay attention to. Those are the symbols that are implanted there. Oftentimes, the ancestors will bring you to a place that you are very comfortable in order to give you messages. But because we aren't taught how to interpret our dreams anymore, some of us, we don't realize that. So you might be like, let's say you're in your 30s and there's a childhood house that you loved, like you lived in it from, like, let's say 5 to 11 or 12 or 15 or something. That might be where you feel your most freest, your comfortablest, and you might have a lot of dreams about that place. And you are happy there and you're whole and everything. But as you get older, maybe through your mid-20s, your early 30s, you start noticing things are kind of out of whack. And you're like, wait, what? Pay attention. Because those are the things that mean the most. That's what you have to be interpreting. Yeah, that's what you have to be interpreting. Additionally, don't always take things on face value, and don't always not take things on face value. This is why it's important that you have a deep relationship with your ancestors and with your guides, and with your elders and with the orishas, because with all of that, you can start to decipher rather quickly what things mean. I'll give you a great example of this. So in the span of 8 years, just about, I had dreams about blizzards. Now, I didn't know what they meant, and it took me a minute to do the research, because at first I was like, well, I'll just listen to the ancestors and they'll give me the answers. And the ancestors said, no, we need you to research this one. Ultimately, there were two explanations that worked. And then it took me working with the ancestors for another week or so, a couple of weeks actually, where they finally were like, this is actually, like, you got the information right, but this is how we want you to interpret it beyond the information. Oh, okay. And then there was one time where I dreamt of a dead deer. And it literally, I was looking for the answer for like a week before I found it. And then the ancestors went in over the course of the next couple of weeks and they offered me more. So keep your mind open when you're trying to interpret dreams, because you there's so much happening with them. Plus, there's times where you will inherit other people's dreams, and especially if you're intuitive. The goal is, before you go to sleep, make sure you protect yourself. It could be just white light. You could say a prayer to the ancestors, to the orishas, to the gods and goddesses. I would always say definitely include the orishas, the ancestors, gods and goddesses. If you work with your soul group, include them. If you work with the angels, include them. But those first three are important. One, because the Orishas connect you to your heritage, and they connect you to a long line of ceremonies and wisdom teachings. Two, the ancestors. Do I have to even explain that? Make sure you invoke your highest ancestors, so that any spirit that came in and is still earthbound can't disrupt you. And then um, the gods and goddesses, you don't have to utilize them. Um, but I like to at least include one or two. I like to include one or two. And those of you who do not know the difference between what's often referred to as the gods and goddesses, the omni god form, and the orishas, keep working at it. You'll get there. Keep working at it. You will get there. Okay. Um, Finally, I think that might actually be it. Keep searching, y'all. Um, we are the key to helping this country and this world. I'm not saying that you need to love this country, and I'm sure enough not saying that you need to save this country. Um, this is about creating the stabilizing force necessary to transition this country away from imperialism, to transition it away from the dehumanized structures that it uses, um, and to move it into the position where Black folks and all humanitarian oriented people can live well. And that's our goal. That's what we have to do. Okay. Um, I will be back. I will start producing these long ones again. Um, just getting myself right. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns, you leave them below. I am your brother Vimir Diesel Gaia. Check out Dr. Obitashaka's channel if you want some deep Black Africana scholarship. In Class with Carr, the same thing. Black Power Media, Jackie Lukman Nation, Burn It Down, Kim Brown, Dr. Ball. I know I'm missing some folks. So I apologize. But guys, we got this. Peace.